Hello, and welcome to the Dynamic Man Experience, a podcast dedicated to men who want to become the 10.0 version of themselves through mastering the three key relationships of mindset, money, and the many people in their lives, creating long lasting, deep connections and trusted bonds for real appreciation and understanding. You know, there's a lot to be said for transformation when your back is against the wall. Sometimes we're not going to do anything. We're not going to make the improvements we need. We're not going to change unless, we're backed into a corner or we just don't have any other choice. Like a half a lifetime ago, back here, it was on Nantucket, and it's an island 25 miles out into the North Atlantic. Coming from a North Atlantic island, Ireland, it's very damp, it's very humid, always, and it's always, it's very hard to get warm in these places, especially during the winters, which can be very, very damp. And the houses in Ireland were very damp, so it lent itself to bronchial issues. And yeah, I got really, really bad asthma here, working in construction, the trades, and dust and dampness and all that shit, and probably drinking too much and maybe smoking a bit of strong weed. And yeah, it really messed up my chest. And one time I ended up, some of the woods you work with as well are very toxic for, cedar. Man, that stuff, if I even get a whiff of that, wrecks me. Just like, and I would end up after a day working on the trades, on my tools, with, 6, 7, 8 hours of sneezing and choking and just eating shit, utter shit. Yeah, everything was wrong. So I ended up in hospital, and my oxygen levels went really low. So I was at a point where I needed to do something, or else I was going to be sucking on inhalers and chugging down steroids and antibiotics and all that shite. So I I I started looking at what I could do better. Went to specialists in this country, went to a specialist in Ireland. Man, was he fucking useless. Basically, after all the testing and everything that he did, blood tests, whatever, he didn't see anything I was specifically allergic to, but his solution, just learn to live with asthma. It's like, wow. Aren't you a mine of useless information? And basically the same thing in this country, US, where I started on a blue inhaler, then they gave me a green one, then they gave me a red one, and they were getting progressively, drastically more expensive and lasting less time. So the blue one, yeah, that was a generic one, and the green one, that was a $200 one that lasted like half the time. Wow. It's like, this is unsustainable. So I started looking at acupuncture and herbalists and all sorts of other what was it? Craniosacral osteopath, all these all these various alternatives, and really, really not making much of a difference. So, my breathing wasn't great. I was well overweight, just eating shit, not knowing what to do. And I heard this interview on Irish radio at home one Christmas, and it was this Kiwi nutritionist talking to an Irish Olympic athlete who had spinal cancer, and how her change of diet for him made life much more bearable. I was like, this sounds interesting. So I went away, got her number, checked her out, made an appointment with her, and I think like $50 maybe for, I don't, what would you call it? A session with her. She didn't run any tests. She didn't take my temperature. She didn't do anything physical. She just observed my pallor, my breathing, what I was saying about what I was eating. And as I was explaining what was going on with me, she just started writing on a blank sheet of paper, just kept on writing and writing and writing and writing and writing. She kept on writing. And basically just she just probed, asked questions, and that was it. And at the end of the session, I think she might have had 8 pages written out. So she showed me what I should eat, what I shouldn't eat, what supplements I needed, why I needed such supplements, and there was a complete change of lifestyle. I was looking at this going, wow. I left her place in the middle of nowhere, drove out, and I just parked up somewhere, and I had a good look through everything she had written down. I was like, holy crap. This is everything I love. Bread in Ireland, the butter, wow. I had to give up wheat, I had to give up dairy, I had to give up yeast, I had to give up pork, like so much stuff I had to give up. All the stuff that was like so fucking tasty. I remember like just sitting in the car outside, just looking at this going, nothing else has worked. I can hardly breathe. I was getting married within 2 months. Had already had my suit picked out and sized and all that. The wedding ring sized and fitted. Everything was in place. And I knew myself. This wasn't who I wanted to be. Wasn't where I wanted to be. This was, a commitment to my partner. And I wasn't even committed to myself. So I was looking through the list and I just said, fuck this. I'm just going to do it. Even though, like, this was on a Saturday morning and I knew going home, Saturday lunch would have been, fresh bread rolls, Kerrygold butter, creamy soup, all the stuff I could not eat anymore. I remember just like, I could taste all that stuff. But it's like, this isn't working. So, yeah. I went straight to the health food store, bought all the supplements I needed, went to the supermarket, got more stuff, more food, all the alternatives, that I could, not that I knew much about the alternatives, but now that my mind was in flux, I could start seeing other stuff besides all the stuff that I knew. Yeah, yeah. And I knew this woman, this woman was to be trusted. There was something about her. And it wasn't just that she told me if I followed her instructions, everything would work out. So I decided there and then in the car that morning just to go for it. That was it. Within 2 weeks, I lost 20 pounds. Now, bearing in mind that was a half a lifetime ago, I managed to stay at that weight all my life just by doing the right things for me. So, yeah, I just jumped right on board with everything she said. I followed her instructions to the letter. To the letter. Within, like I said, within 2 weeks, I'd lost 20 pounds. I had to have my wedding suit resized twice. Same with the wedding ring. In fact, I eventually lost the wedding ring because it fell off my finger. Probably lost more weight over the next couple of years, but between losing weight and opening up my airways and just the energy levels just shot through the roof. It was incredible. Absolutely just stunning. And like all those shitty pizzas and fried foods and, you know, big lumpy fucking doughy bread, all that shit gone. Pasta, everything. And my life changed. My life changed so drastically. It's never been the same since. Incredibly. And I've gone back to the same nutritionist, Robin Smith, in Ballyhooly, 2 or 3 times since, and I would say, like, every time she writes out sheets of instructions and supplements and advice, that is my Bible. That is my wellness Bible. Not only does it allow me to be more physically well, but it's great for my head. Absolutely fantastic. Knowing that you have the energy and that, okay, you're going to break out sometimes and someone might hand you, you go to Italy and how can you say no to an Italian pizza? It's impossible. Or one of those pastries with custard filling. Holy shit. Yeah, maybe a bit of chocolate, but, you know, the discipline is there because you know it works. And when you know it works, man, you never find yourself painting yourself back into that corner. So, what is the lesson when it comes to change? And I always give this analogy like in surfing. At some point in your surfing, learning how to surf, you're going to have to just, take the drop, face down take the, face down the wave and land it and turn and go. It's all about accepting that you're going to have to do it at some stage and doing it. I mean, the corner I painted myself into was quite, I would say, stupid. The fact that I was only making myself asthmatic with my food choices, with my lifestyle choices, with the general disregard for you know, my respiratory system. I didn't have to paint myself into that corner to figure it out. The moment I ended up in hospital, like, why was it so difficult to figure out that food was such a vital part of it? This is the late 90s. You go into an Irish restaurant and you ask for vegetarian food and they offer you cornflakes. Come on. Food wasn't what it is now. Food wisdom wasn't what it is now. I even wrote a book, Starving Asthma, because that's what it is. In order to feed your own physical fitness and wellness, you've got to remove what it is that's preventing you from being fit and healthy. And sneezing non-stop every night, like driving yourself insane. I don't know how many months this went on for, like just sneezing more. One sneeze after another. One sneeze after another for hours and hours and hours. Misery. Waking up in the middle of the night choked for breath. Like fighting for oxygen. Fighting for oxygen. It took me a long time to figure that one out. But once I did, the transformation was complete. And look, but it was the suffering. I don't know, it was like how many years of suffering before, like it was at least 2-3 years of suffering. Like that, I couldn't, like, I hated the cold. I hated the cold because it triggered me. Friends would ask me to come visit them in Aspen, and I was like, not a chance, man, I'm going to the sun. I can't stand it. There's not a hope. Even going back to Ireland for Christmas, I was like, Jesus, this is misery. Because I knew I would have an attack. And even in Nantucket, like still, it was just, wow. Wow. Yeah, so there we have it. That was the biggest transformation for me. Understanding the power of nutrition and wellness, the connection between feeling positive and feeling healthy. Because if you're not feeling good, how are you going to feel healthy? How if you're not feeling good in your head, if your emotional well-being is not in a good place, and my head was melted during these couple of years, I must have been, I don't know how my ex ever agreed to marry me, because those were not like the best times for me mentally, psychologically. My psychological hygiene really suffered. Like the connection between our emotions and our health is something, as men, that we need to address, because I'm sure, like, I would get mad, I would get angry, I would get tired, depressed, all of those things. And wherever I was shoving those emotions, my lungs weren't getting any better. So, yeah, and it just has an effect on every part of you. You just don't have the energy to do any of the things that you like. And when I look back at it now, I would never have been able to enjoy probably the greatest passion in my life, which is snowboarding. Getting out there in the cold on like days that could be, the coldest day I've probably been on a mountain is minus 30 degrees Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit, but minus 30 degrees Celsius. Wow. Wow. If I was out there when I had chronic asthma, that would probably have killed me. The chest infections, the bronchial problems, all of that shit. It had such an impact on my emotional well-being, even though, like, it's hard to pinpoint exactly what that could have been. But I know I wasn't in a good headspace. But anyway, that's the point of the transformation. That's the point of change. That's the point of understanding how your physical health is connected so directly to your emotional well-being. And as guys, we know where exactly emotions stand in our reckoning. We don't put much stock in it. We just breeze past them. We push right past them. We shove them down. We stick them down deep, Like, what does anger do to us? How does anger affect our vital organs, our liver, our pancreas, our gall bladder, our kidneys? How does, the fatigue, the depression of our energy affect our heart and our lungs? The beating essence of our being. We put up with that shit because we're not willing to deal with the emotional aspect of who we are, what we do. Now, I'm sure if I go back and think about why I was eating that way, that made me so susceptible to asthma, bronchial problems, you know? Yeah, maybe I didn't feel good about myself. I was stress eating to feel better. Yeah, you know how that goes. We eat shit because, yeah, it makes us feel better. Give us more of that old, you know. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. It really is fascinating that we don't connect our emotional health to the way we look after ourselves, to the inclination we have to, improve our energy levels and stay well, stay healthy. So I know, if I'm feeling a bit lethargic, I whip up a fucking raw dynamic salad and I load it up with like good shit. Lemon juice, olive oil, coconut oil, apple cider vinegar, bit of ginger, garlic, and I really pep it up. And I know that's so vibrant for my lungs, my energy, my emotional well-being. There you go. That's been the greatest transformation I've had in my life. I beat asthma, and all I had to do was give up a few things that I've been eating all my life. Fuck. When I think about it, I remember going to a friend's house maybe a week or two later after deciding to just follow this nutritionist's advice. And, ham sandwiches and fresh rolls with loads of butter and creamy milky soup. And I'm sitting at the table and I say, I don't eat any of this. I don't eat any of this. And I remember just how offended they were. It's like, no, no, no. But I just couldn't transmit the message. I could barely transmit it to myself. But yeah, you know, it was so tricky in Ireland. Like, people would be, come back to us, man, come back to us. You don't put milk in your tea. The fuck is wrong with you? No butter on your potatoes? What? So if I can do it, you can do it. I've been a skinny bastard ever since. Man, was I fat. Holy fuck. When I see my head and photos back from those days, whoa. Hallelujah. Okay, guys. Okay, man. This is a message for you, right? I'm just an ordinary guy. I decided that what I was doing all my life was no longer good for me. And as an Irishman, living, residing for 2 or 3 months a year in Ireland every year, that was really challenging on all fronts with family, friends, everyone. And, you know, you gotta believe that when it's right for you, it's just right. And you just do it. End of story. And that's what I did. And it opened up the world for me. It really did. I remember being in Havana with my ex and telling the guy, guest house we were staying in, I was like, I don't want any eggs, I don't want any bread, I don't want any fajitas, whatever. I just want rice and beans for breakfast. Arroz and frijole. And he was looking at me going, the fuck kind of an alien are you? I said, no, that's it. That is it, man. This is the way I eat. You know, I would not go to restaurants unless I called them first and said, look, I am this. This is how I eat. Can you cater to me? And when they say, yeah, that's no problem. Okay. Well, then I go to that restaurant. But if not, don't go. Choices. You know, I with the awareness that nutritionist gave me changed my life forever. And Robin Smith, you are one of the greatest human beings I've ever met. Ever. I thank you. I thank you for your insistence, your conviction, your belief in your methods, in your knowledge, in your wisdom. And that's what I'm trying to transmit to you today. I believe in you. She believed in me. I believe in you. Let's get on it, man. It's time to believe. It's your turn. Call it what you want. But as guys, there's an exciting challenge to being a man these days. And it doesn't take that much to really stand out. And look, you are not as far away from where you want to be, as you might think. Not when you can look at it from a different angle and get a better appreciation for the experience that has got you this far. You could call it a psychological cold plunge. It's time to freshen things up. Being a dynamic man. That is the challenge today.